Okay, so welcome a lot earlier in the day to my Ironheart review because I was really excited to watch this, so I got up early. I didn't wait like I did last time, and they haven't magically dropped a Fantastic Four trailer on us like last time. So, episodes 4 through 6 dropped today, and we've got quite a lot to talk about. And because there's a lot to talk about, we're going to be jumping around quite a bit and I'm going to be missing out a couple of things. There's going to be a few things that I don't get to kind of like hyper focus on and mention. So if I end up skipping something important, then I apologize, but I've tried to hit like as many main beats as I can. So let's talk about it because the last 3 episodes of Ironheart were pretty good. I'm quite excited to get into it. So, right off the bat, we get Obadiah Stane's son Zeke reclaiming his name, and he's been arrested because Riri dropped the tech that he made her, in the heirloom greenhouse. So he's been framed for everything that happened at heirloom. So that's 2 deaths and theft. I think theft anyway. So he's pretty pissed, and he's got, I think, valid reason to be quite pissed. So that completely like flips his character on a 180. I think I said in the first review that I wasn't sure whether or not they were going to go with him being a villain, and they kind of commit to it here. He's still a bit of like a sort of frenemy to Riri, but we'll get onto that a little bit later in the show. But yeah, we kick it off with Stain is in jail. That's where his character is, and it's very important for where he ends up a little bit later on. So for the other half of the episode, we get very witchy, and Agatha all along is probably one of my favourite MCU shows, if not my favourite, aside from Daredevil. And it was really, really great to see some more supernatural stuff within the MCU, and we got loads of references to Doctor Strange here. We got like Dormammu name drop. We got the reference to Mads Mikkelsen's character. I don't remember his name. But yeah, he was referenced here with like the scars and stuff, and they were talking about how it would relate to what's going on with the Hood and him getting the scars and stuff. So that was really, really cool. And we got introduced to Zelma. I don't remember Zelma's last name. But she is a character from the comics. She is a witch from the comics. The reference to like the brain maggots is like a thing to do with her in the comics, and she's had an adventure with Doctor Strange before, and she's kind of like her own little side character. And I like her as being part of Riri's kind of like social circle, and her being, you know, the connection to the supernatural side. I think it's really, really cool. Absolutely loved the actress that played Zelma. She was fantastic, really, really charismatic, and became like one of my favorite characters in the show by the time, you know, we'd had like 2 scenes with her, and she was great. She was using magic so casually, which was also great to see, because every time we see magic, especially with like WandaVision and Agatha, it's always on like this grand scale that's really over the top. And I feel like here, you know, she was just using it to stir things, and she was just using it to move them around and stuff, and it was just cool to see. So then, for episode 2, at the back end of 1, the Hood puts a hit out on Riri and sends his gang after her. And we get, in my opinion, a very poor fight scene. It wasn't great, and I think this speaks to like a lot of the action in this show. I don't really feel the action much. But we got the gang versus Riri, where they encounter her, sort of like, you know, Clown goes after her, the Muscle goes after her, and then Slug goes after her, in like each do it in a different way. And while I appreciate that Riri was able to take down each of them in a unique way and kind of like use technology to her advantage and kind of like outsmart them, I just didn't feel it. Like, they didn't feel like a threat. It didn't really feel like there were any stakes or anything. It just felt like a hurdle that we had to get through to, like, get to the main portion, which we got the scene from the trailer where Riri does, like, the backflip and then, like, knocks out the lorry, locks out the truck. that was the truck that Slug was in, and it gets flipped over and Slug sort of like wobbles away. That's pretty much like we don't see much of the gang really after that. I think we get like one scene with them, but it all leads to Zeke Stain getting these bionic, like cyberpunky kind of implants where he's enhanced, and he ends up destroying the suit that Riri is in. And he's been tasked with killing her, but decides not to and gives her the opportunity to, vanish, go under the radar, get out of there, basically. Which we then switch gears and we go into dealing with trauma. We get a big extended section of the sort of pros of Natalie being around, as Riri's had her suit destroyed. She has to go back. She has to kind of regain and go back to her roots and stuff. And we get to see more of her interaction with her dad through Natalie, who is like showing her memories and stuff, being able to show, give her a glimpse back at when she was the happiest, basically. And it was a really nice sequence. I think that this show does a really great job of building up the side characters and showing like the support network. And it reminds me quite a lot of when I played the Spider-Man Miles Morales game, because at the end of that, you get the big sort of like coming together of his community and him being the Spider-Man for his community and for Harlem. And that was really an emotional moment. And I feel like we got something kind of similar here where she's got all these people around her that are supporting her, and that's what makes her Ironheart. And it brings me on to something that the show's been criticized quite a lot for after the first 3 episodes, because there was a quote from Riri saying that, Tony Stark has money and I do not, and that's what sets us apart. And a lot of people took that, and I mean a lot of people have taken that either out of context because they've not watched it, or they've just completely perceived it wrong as being, oh, well, she's shitting on Tony Stark because he was rich. That's not what it was. There's never anything here where Riri has like a fuck the rich mindset. She was taken in by Wakanda and provided a suit and stuff. She's got no reason to like despise anybody wealthy, right? And throughout the first 3 episodes, especially in the first one, she establishes that she wants to build on Tony Stark's legacy and develop technology to help keep people safe and to boost up like emergency services and stuff, because that's where Tony Stark was kind of heading with his. He'd gone from being a warmonger into supporting people. He wanted to make a shield of armor for the world. So she's doing that in the best way that she can. And she highlights that she's going to struggle with that at the moment because she doesn't have the level of money. And some people have argued that, like, well, she was given a grant by, the Tony Stark Foundation at MIT or whatever. Okay, she's been given a grant. You know how much a grant is? It's like a couple of grand at the most. Like, a grant is not a lot of money, and she's not going to save the world with a grant. Okay? But the difference here is that the show, over the course of 6 episodes, shows you that she's got this connection and like this family network around her, whether it's found family or friends or actual family, like blood family. They all come around her to support her. And early on, that's nothing that Tony had. Like, the first, and I've got the reactions on the channel, I've watched them recently. The first 2 Iron Man films, the only person he's got is Pepper, because he pushes Rhodey away. And he doesn't really want to interact with Rhodey until the back end of Iron Man 2. And him and Pepper are very back and forth. They don't really know where they stand for a lot of it. So, at the most, he's only got Pepper. And I think that's the big comparison here, is that Tony's got money, and Tony is a billionaire, and Tony was born with the heritage of his father. Both of these characters have different levels of daddy issues. There's daddy issues all over the Iron Man legacy now because of Ironheart, Hood, and Iron Man. But the core difference between these is that Riri doesn't need the money. She's going to kind of like find her way around the advantage that Tony Stark had by being born into the money. And it's not taking away, I get that like Tony Stark You know, he built the first suit out of a box of scraps. I get that. I fully understand, you know, he made it from scratch. But the point is that he advanced very, very fucking quickly as soon as he got out of that cave and was making a shit ton of suits very fast. She's having to make a suit out of a car, and it's like her third suit in. He didn't get... How many suits did he have? He made like the Mark 1 in the cave, and then the rest of them were made with his money. So she's already making multiple out of scrap, is my point. And I just feel like there's not a lot of... I don't know, people just aren't really being very open to it. It's just going into it with like the closed-minded attitude of like, okay, well, this is what I want it to be. This is the box that I'm putting it in before I've even experienced it. And I do think a lot of people just aren't going to watch this and are just going to assume. And it's a shame because it is a great show. So that's enough of me talking about Iron Man, but I wanted to get it off my chest because I feel like it's been a big talking point. And yeah, but we got the new suit. We got the new suit. It looks so much like the comic book one, but with a lot more black involved. It's like primarily black with red accents. It looks great. It reminds me a lot of the Black Panther 2 one, but I think that one was a lot more red with black accents. So, you know, she's kind of sticking to what she knows. And yeah, she made it out of a car, which is great. I like it. I don't know how durable that makes it, because it's not... I don't know what Tony Stark made his suits out of in the end, but, you know, it's strong enough that she can go toe-to-toe with a villain like the Hood or someone like Zeke Stane later on. But we got the new suit. I personally think it looks great. The CGI throughout all of this show has been pretty solid. I think, like, maybe just the tunnel sequence in episode 2 was a bit weak, but otherwise... the CGI has been great. And here we go. He's finally here. This is the thing that everyone's going to be talking about. You know, back during WandaVision, it was the craze. Everyone thought that Mephisto was going to be involved because WandaVision was the MCU's equivalent to House of M. And, you know, her kids were involved and Mephisto's linked to her kids. He's here. He's finally here. The rumours were true. They kind of teased us for a bit and were like, oh, well, it could be Dormammu because that's what it is in the comics. But I'm fairly certain it got leaked a couple of years back that Sacha Baron Cohen was going to be playing Mephisto. And everyone was kind of umming and ahhing, and it was kept secret. It wasn't ever officially leaked. Okay? There was never, like, there was a sort of AI CGI shot of Mephisto in like a throne room that went quite viral. I personally believed it myself. But after watching this, I'm glad that it was bollocks. I'm glad that we live in a world right now where, like, I don't really know what's true and what's not, because then when I experience it, it's still a surprise. You know, things can't get leaked if everything's getting leaked, and bollocks is being thrown in there as well. But he was here, we finally got him, and he was great. He was really, really well done. He was everything that I kind of imagined, at least in terms of, like, him being in a human form and him being, like, toned down and contained for the sake of being in, you know, a show and showing his, like, first introduction. This is what I imagined him being like. And it was very much on the same level for me as He Who Remains. I will never, like, that's one of my favourite moments in Marvel, because we watched that as a group with, like, friends and stuff. I watched it with Ryan, who's from the podcast, and the moment that elevator opened and we saw Jonathan Majors, I was so happy, and I was so excited. And that's how I felt here. The moment that I realised it was him, just pure excitement and pure giddiness, and, like, that's what I like to get from Marvel, is, like, that childlike excitement from it. And I loved it. I thought it was great. Sacha Baron Cohen did a great job. And I really, really hope that they get the wheels turning and we don't have to wait too long to see him again. I know it's probably going to be after Secret Wars, but I really hope that they kind of, like, streamline and they say, right, okay, this is where we're going with it. And we get to see him as soon as possible. The end of the show... Again, I'm going to be skipping over a lot of stuff. I'm not going to be covering the fight with Zeke Stain or the fight with the Hood. And I'm not going to be covering the stuff that we saw of the Hood. Because in my opinion, they were kind of playing second fiddle. Everything's going to be playing second fiddle when you've got Mephisto in the show. But the ending of the show threw me for a loop. I was not expecting it at all. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised because the show kind of like builds through her overcoming her trauma, and because she's lost her dad, she lost her best friend, but it's not the trauma of her best friend that she's getting over. It's the trauma of her dad that she's getting over. And the trauma of her best friend is still lingering because of this AI that she's created. It keeps the feelings kind of there for her. And there's a lot of conversation throughout the show about AI, and I spoke about it in the first review. So I'm not going to be covering any of that. But at the end, Mephisto says to her, you know, we can make a partnership. I can bring back your best friend. He doesn't say it outright, but he says, I can give you whatever you want. And the only thing that she wants is Natalie back. And we get a flash forward of Riri looking straight out of the comics with the blown out hair. She looks amazing. Even the outfit that she's wearing looks like straight out of the comics. She looks brilliant. And we get the reveal that Natalie's alive and he can bring people back from the dead, which is insane. And then she goes in to hug and you see the scars along her arm. And she's made a deal with the devil of Marvel. It was really, really well done. Like, what a cliffhanger. And I think it's like, it's mental to me that this wasn't not necessarily a weekly dropped show. Maybe for the second half, I think that this show would have benefited from having 2 episodes drop initially, because those 2 episodes I do think are the weakest. Then having the 3rd episode, and it kind of amps up the tension a bit. And then 4, 5, and 6 weekly, because each of those were strong episodes, and I think each of them had a moment in them that made it worth waiting a week for, even if it was just a small moment. And especially the finale. I think the finale would have really done a good job of like churning up people's chatter for the show, and I think it's a shame that they decided to just drop it. They just decided to drop it over 2 weeks. And I think it is because of the character's popularity, or lack thereof. And I think it is about the current fan base of the MCU, unfortunately, where there's a lot of discussion about like, oh, well, we didn't ask for Thunderbolts. Nobody asked for Agatha all along. Nobody wants to see Ironheart. And then these projects drop, and they're good. But nobody's going to see them because they didn't ask. But I think that, you know, did anybody ask for the MCU to begin with? Maybe in the early 2000s, but I don't know if they did, if they were by 2008. Maybe they were, but I keep getting told, and people keep saying that like the characters that they started off with in Phase 1 were not very popular, and they didn't have a lot of rights to their popular characters. So I think like the logic of, oh, well, this character's not for me and I didn't ask for this, is such like a selfish mindset. Like, why not go into it and experience it first? I don't understand it. And I do think that like, if you're watching this review before watching it yourself, I feel like you should go watch it yourself. You should turn this off and go watch it, because it's really good. All of the actors do great jobs here. The story is really well done, and it's full of like really, really strong character development and character interactions. And again, that twist at the end. And we're in sort of like a state with Marvel where they could drop this and we could never see Ironheart ever again. Or they bring her back in as like an agent of Mephisto, as like a superior Ironheart. I'm really, really intrigued to see where they go with this. Really, really intrigued. If they do it all. I mean, they've been slowly setting up Champions and the Young Avengers. It seems like they're now slowly setting up Midnight Suns. Are we going to get some sort of combination of the two? Are we ever gonna get Blade? And if I had to make like a strong prediction, if I had to pick based off of like what they've done so far, I would do the Champions versus Mephisto. I do think that Mephisto is the perfect TV Disney Plus villain, and I know that some people are going to be upset by that because they want to see Mephisto on the big screen, and so do I. I want to see him in all of his full CGI glory doing amazing things, and I'd be fully fine if they did it in a film. But everyone keeps talking, all the leaks, about a Champions show. I think your Champions level villain should be Mephisto. The Young Avengers had Kang. The Young Avengers then had Doctor Doom. To some extent, you know, with the assist of the Avengers in Children's Crusade. I think that you've got to have someone big for these guys to take on to legitimize them. And I think the other issue that they've currently got at the moment is the team, because we've got Wiccan, Miss Marvel, White Tiger, Ironheart, Stature, and Hawkeye. There's not a lot of, like, male presence. And I think considering the criticism that the MCU has had, they need to very quickly start bringing characters in. And I've listed some, Hulkling and Scar. You know, there were rumours that, like, Scar might replace Hulkling. You can't do it. You cannot do it. You can't. It would be awful. Hulkling and Wiccan are great characters. I have them tattooed on my arm. Please don't replace Hulkling with Scar. It will completely put me off the MCU. But Braun, Amadeus Cho, has been rumoured for a long time with the kid from Ghostbusters. He's currently playing Maggie's kid in the Walking Dead show. Patriot debuted. Where is he? He was in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show and we've not seen him since. Speed, you know, rumoured for Vision Quest. Will he turn up? We don't really know. Again, we can't trust the rumours. I would put money on it, but that's only one other person. Nova, been rumoured for a long time to be getting his own show. Really hope that he does. And then I've put Vision down here because in the Champions, I think it's Vision's kid that is in there. I've never read a Champions comic, so I'm not too certain. But I'm pretty certain it's Vision's kid. And in the Young Avengers, it's a different version of Vision. It's like a reincarnated, recreated version of Vision after Vision dies in Disassembled. So to me, it makes sense that they would have some sort of robot Vision character. But we've got to get some males in here. We've got to get some guys in here to pad this out a bit. I don't know if White Tiger's going to be in there because it seems like she's directly connected to Daredevil, but Daredevil's TV. So who knows? But overall, I would give the show a 7 out of 10. I'm going to stick with that rating that I gave the first half of the season because although the second half of the season did peak higher for me, it still had like its moments that I feel like, you know, the stuff with the hood, I don't fully connect with it at all, and I weren't fully entertained by it. And I think that there were like doors left open that didn't need to be left open. You know, there's a cliffhanger with the hood. We never really see what happens to Zeke Stane at the end of the show. He just sort of, he's there, you know, in the background. So that's 2. And then you've got the cliffhanger with Mephisto. It just feels like the first 3 episodes were a sort of slow burn developing Riri's character. And then episodes 4 and 5 were building up like the confrontation with the hood. We got the confrontation with the hood in episode 6. And then suddenly like the back end of episode 6 just started setting up like things that may never get concluded. And I think that, again, the way that they formatted this with dropping it 3 episodes a week is a real shame. I think that the show deserved a lot better, and there'd be a lot more hype around the show. I think the show should come out before Agatha, because then you would have had Agatha and the name drop of Mephisto and all of this witchy stuff after you've just got a sneak peek at witchy stuff, and it would have felt more cohesive. Because Marvel's got a lot of these through lines that are kind of all over the place and going different directions, and you've got like vague Midnight Suns and vague supernatural wonder stuff, and then vague Young Avengers, and vague Defenders, and vague Avengers with Thunderbolts, and Hawkeye and Black Widow and stuff. Everything's kind of like connected but loosely connected, and this show didn't really help in any way. I didn't expect it to, but I didn't expect it to like complicate things even more. But I did enjoy it, and I do definitely recommend it. At most, I'd give it like a 7.5. I think, again, the action really let it down for me. I didn't enjoy the action sequences at all, and I wanted a lot more from them. But I am interested to see where it goes. I think that, if we ever got an Ironheart Season 2, I doubt it. But if they confirm that they're doing Champions and Mephisto's going to be involved, if there's some hope here that like everything that we've been building up is finally going to be concluded, I think that would elevate this show. But I think it's difficult to be optimistic about it at this point. So it's staying at a 7.5. I'm raising it to a 7.5. But I do recommend it. Let me know what you thought of it down below. I know that this is going to be a very divisive show. I think for the most part, the online reaction to it has been that, look, if you paid attention and you gave it a go, then it's actually pretty decent. I think a lot of people just are not going to give it a go, so they're just going to say that it's crap because they've not seen it. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't know if I enjoyed it more than Daredevil, but I did enjoy it. So thank you for watching my breakdown. I hope I didn't ramble too much in some sections, and I hope that I got my points across, especially with like the Tony Stark related thing. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.